Hello students, Dr. Mike here. This is video number 19. In this video I want to talk about one of the many issues in the ethics of entertainment media. Now there's a lot of ethical issues when it comes to entertainment content. Many concerns around the depiction of violence and sex and the presence of strong language. Concerns about product placement and product integration. Concerns about stereotypes and how people are represented in media messages. People are concerned about violations of good taste and taboos in society. Other critics are concerned about the depictions of tobacco, drug, and alcohol use. And another issue involves the ethical treatment of animals, and that's what I want to focus in on in this video. How do we treat animals when it comes to film and television and the world of mass media, mass communication? The ethical treatment of animals is the concern in this video. Now, you may have seen this label attached to a movie in the United States. No animals were harmed. This is a seal of approval given by the American Humane Association. And it guarantees that no animal was harmed in the making of a television program or a movie. Now, we're not so much concerned about the treatment of animals in cooking shows, unless you're a vegan, I suppose. You might have some ethical issues. But we're really talking about here the treatment of live animals. Okay, you may be familiar with this movie from 2011, The Hobbit, a fantasy film. Did you know that animal rights advocates said the makers of The Hobbit were guilty of animal abuse, lots of animal abuse? The Hobbit was marred by a number of accusations that 27 animals actually died due to unsafe conditions. Now, Warner Brothers Pictures vigorously refuted the charges and condemned the accusations of animal abuse in the film. Now, this issue about treatment of animals in Hollywood has evolved. It's changed over time, as everything does. The treatment of animals has changed in Hollywood since the very beginnings of the motion picture industry. Let's try and give you some background and some context on the issue of the treatment of animals in the movies and television. The abuse of animals goes back to the beginning of filmmaking. Electrocuting an Elephant was a short, silent film created back in 1903 by Thomas Edison's filmmakers. Why would Edison execute an elephant? Well, Edison executed an elephant with alternating current to show how dangerous it was as part of his feud with Nikola Tesla over the electrification of America. It was a publicity stunt to show that the competitors had produced a very dangerous electric system. Accusations of animal abuse go back to the earliest days of Hollywood, the silent era. For example, Ben-Hur, at least 100 horses were killed during the filming of the famous chariot race scene in the movie Ben-Hur. Imagine 100 horses dying just to film a scene in a movie. Another movie that was accused of abusing animals was The Charge of the Light Brigade. This was a film from 1936, Errol Flynn. The film made extensive use of tripwires to make horses fall during filming of the big climatic fight scene. Very hard on the horses. Now, the popularity of westerns was especially hard on horses. Jesse James, a movie from 1939. In this film, 2 horses were outfitted with blinders, and they were tricked into running off a 75-foot cliff during production to get this dramatic scene. Well, the stuntman survived, but the horse didn't. An example of killing a horse just to elicit a performance, a scene in a movie. This was the single biggest turning point in the history of Hollywood's treatment of animals. Word about the deaths of these horses got out, and there was a lot of furor. I hope you have respect for animals and think that animals should be treated fairly and compassionately. Now, starting in 1940, the American Humane Association took over the mission of monitoring the treatment of animals in Hollywood, and it was granted access to movie sets. Other films that raised questions about the treatment of animals included the famous Apocalypse Now, the movie about Vietnam. In Apocalypse Now, a real water buffalo was slaughtered with a machete. Though it had been claimed that the buffalo was going to be slaughtered in this manner anyhow, but they did murder a buffalo live. Heaven's Gate, another controversial film in terms of the treatment of animals. Heaven's Gate was a big flop, but it faced a lot of accusations back in 1980 of animal cruelty. And the American Humane Association, which hadn't been allowed on the set, actually led a boycott of this film, Heaven's Gate. HBO, this is a little more recent, but back in 2011, HBO produced a show called Luck about horse racing, and it was criticized after a number of horses died during the production process. So, again, animal rights activists are monitoring Hollywood. The Hobbit, the makers of The Hobbit, were accused of animal abuse. Now, in 1988, the American Humane Association published a set of guidelines for film and TV production. You can find these guidelines on the internet. And then a year later, the No Animals Were Harmed disclaimer came into being. No animals were harmed. That's the certification given to a TV show or a movie if the filmmakers follow the guidelines for the safe use of animals. So the American Humane Association believes that all animals should be treated humanely, and they take this idea of all animals very seriously, as you will see. And they believe we should celebrate the special role that animals play in our families and our lives. Quoting the group, animals appearing in film and TV are testaments to the human-animal bond through their interaction with their trainers, their cast and crew members, and ultimately through their effect on audiences. The animal-human bond. Our mission on the sets of film productions is to protect those animals and to ensure that they are treated humanely with the respect and compassion they deserve. So, what are the basic principles for the safe use of animals in filmed media? First and foremost is the idea that animals are not props. Even if they are supplied by the prop department, they should not be treated as just props. So, no animal should ever be killed or injured just for the sake of a film production. Also, the American Humane Association will not allow any animal to be treated inhumanely in order to elicit a performance. They also say that reality shows may only include scenes that do not show real harm to a live animal. This is what's required in order to get the seal of approval from the American Humane Association. Now, what about the so-called lower forms of life, reptiles and insects? Well, apparently the American Humane Association believes that all animals deserve compassionate treatment. So they have published a lot of specific guidelines, species-specific guidelines that cover a broad range of animals, from dogs and cats, birds, fish, insects, arachnids, Horses, primates, monkeys, apes, reptiles, amphibians. They have specific guidelines on how these animals are to be treated pre-production and during production. Now, since the late 1980s, the incidence of accidents, illnesses, and deaths of animals on sets has sharply declined, although there are still occasional violators, especially when the filming takes place overseas where there's less monitoring and less supervision. Before production even begins, the American Humane Association reviews scripts, looking for potential problem situations, and advises the producers on how to handle the animal action that they plan. Now, if all the guidelines are met, the AHA's Film and TV Unit certifies no animals were harmed in the making of the film or TV show. No animals were harmed. If you want more information, if you want to actually see these guidelines, go to the American Humane FilmTV.org website. All right, now let us talk about the impact of the digital age on the ethical treatment of animals. You know, I think we're seeing this problem fade away quite a bit because of CGI. Computer-generated imagery, CGI. That's the application of these high-powered computer graphics and even artificial intelligence to create images in media messages. And these images have become so realistic, so believable, so that now it's possible to create a film without any live animals, a film that has the appearance of animals, of live animals, because it's using computer-generated imagery. So that might be part of the solution to the ethical treatment of animals in Hollywood. Okay, I hope you got a little bit out of this video. Be kind to all living creatures, well, except for mosquitoes and cockroaches and a few others, but you'll have to come up with your own guidelines for how you want to treat animals. Anyway, have a good day and take care. So long.